My name is Fabiano Caruana. I'm a chess player. I'm a grandmaster. I was born in the United States in Miami, Florida, but I've been traveling around the world for decades now, and this is my life in chess. In my mind, I would start my chess career when I started playing chess. But of course, it's difficult to say because a lot of players who start playing chess, even at a very young age, maybe it's just a hobby for them. Maybe it ends up being a professional career, as it did in my case. So I would say that I started my chess career when I was around the age of 5 years old, which sounds very early, but it's also very typical among chess players to start quite young. My parents were always very supportive. My father always enjoyed playing chess, although he couldn't really handle the kind of losing aspect of it, so he didn't like to play. When we played, it was only when I was very young, and then at some point when I started to get better, he no longer wanted to play with me. I can't remember exactly the age when we stopped playing, let's say. But I did get pretty good pretty quickly. I would say around the average level of like an adult, probably by the time I was like 7 or 8, or around that age, that I would be around the level of an adult in the United States. My mother was supportive, but wasn't really a chess player, didn't have much interest in it as a game herself. I would say that part of the push from it was from my parents in many, many ways, but also one of my earliest memories was playing at my school when I was living in New York. So I was a young kid. One of the people there at the school told my parents maybe he should try playing chess just as a hobby. They had no idea, of course, if I would be good or not. And then when I started playing, the coach noticed that I maybe had some natural gift for the game. It's really hard to say when a kid is 5 years old, I guess, but he noticed something. And at some point then it was really like my father was pushing it very heavily. He really encouraged it. And I don't think, without his push, I don't think I would have pursued it to the level that I did. I do remember my first time beating a grandmaster. His name was Alexander Wojtkiewicz. That would have been at the age of 10 as well. Definitely much stronger than me at the time. I mean, normally I didn't have a chance, right? But I did beat him somehow, and I think maybe I broke the record at the time in the United States for the youngest to beat a grandmaster. Of course, I wasn't anywhere close to the level of grandmaster, but in a singular game, you can have those swings. And that was a big accomplishment. Definitely I was surprised at the time. I do remember that it generated some interest, and I have this memory of doing a photo shoot in Washington Square Park, which was like the kind of famous place where all the hustlers would play, and was a scene of some famous movies, like in Searching for Bobby Fischer, one of the very famous chess movies when I was young. So for me, the Washington Square Park has a very kind of special place. I played there so many times as a kid. And then we did a photo shoot there, but it was raining nonstop, and I was a little kid. I didn't want to do this. I just remember being miserable taking photos in the rain for hours. For me, the Grandmaster title was the first goal that I remember really wanting. It's like some goals you achieve because you just achieve them, right? Just naturally. But some goals you really need to aim for them. And I was searching for that norm for many years, I would say, especially from 2006 to 2007. I made it in 2007. But in 2006, I kind of had the feeling this is the year that I can probably make it. I had achieved the International Master title, which is the title just before that. But it's a whole different level, I think, International Master to Grandmaster. And so 2006, I already felt like I can make it. In Dos Hermanos in Spain, I was playing against some former top players and some future top players like Miguel Ilieskis, like Ivan Sheparinov, and I was able to make draws against them. So it was already a sign, I think, for me, and also looking back on it, that I wasn't just a kid anymore. I mean, I was able to play on equal terms with strong adults now. So in some ways I had matured enough to be at that level. And then the next year is when I actually made the title, and I fulfilled the last norm. I drew in the last game that kind of clinched it, but a draw is not very spectacular. It was like a 11 move draw. It feels like an anticlimax in many ways. So I would say the penultimate round, which I won, that was kind of the clincher, although it wasn't technically the clincher. But I was already at that level, I was going to make it at some point or another. I was already, I think, at a level where I was probably a little bit stronger than the base Grandmaster level. And I do remember a tournament clearly from that year. I mean, I was still a kid, so to have a major tournament win was a big thing. And I won a tournament in Vlissingen in the Netherlands. I think it was September of 2007. In the last round, I played a player who just a few years before had been a world champion. His name was Rustam Kazımjanov. He later became my coach for many years, and he was world champion in 2004. So he was legitimately a top player, and I was defending for 80 moves in the game, trying to hold a draw. And if I made a draw, I knew I would win the tournament. And I ended up I didn't make the draw in the end, and I won the tournament ahead of like much more experienced, stronger, objectively stronger players. But that was like my first major international tournament win. And once I hit the final GM norm and the GM title and was getting my rating up, my progress started to go pretty fast for a while. And then I did hit a road bump in 2008. That was like a rough period, and I lost a lot of rating. I went from 2640, which was probably a bit above what my level was. I maybe was rising a bit too fast, and then I went to 2620. But I recovered from that, and I do remember like my coach telling me, like, you know, you're setting your ambitions a bit too high. You know, you're talking about like all these things, but you have to also adjust to your level first. And so maybe that was like an adjustment period for me, you know, going up very fast and then my rating stabilized a bit, went down, and then went back up after. So there were definitely some like ups and downs. I also remember in 2009, I hit a rough patch and I lost a lot of rating. And when you're young, and I was still just a teenager, every loss feels like the end of the world. Then with some experience, you realize it's definitely not the end of the world. It's just normal. But every time you lose some rating, it feels like, you know, I can't play chess, or this isn't for me, or whatever. So yeah, 2009, there was some rough periods. And I don't know if I was considered like a prospect to be one of the best players in the world at the time. I did luckily get some experience in top level tournaments also in 2009, probably with the expectation that most people had that I would crash and burn. I played the traditional tournament in Biel in Switzerland with, I would say that was the first like super tournament, if you want to call it that, which I played with many of the best players in the world, players like Boris Gelfand, Alexander Morozevich, who played in the World Championship. And it wasn't easy. I mean, I think, finish last place in that tournament with 4 points out of 10 games, but I still did manage to win a game against a top player, against Morozevich. I don't think it was all bad. I didn't view it as like a negative to have a minus score in my first super tournament. In 2010, they changed the format, so it was all young players. Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, I beat him in a final tiebreak game and won the tournament. I think it was like a three-way tie with him and Nguyen Ngọc Trungson, and it was like a three-way playoff for some format, which I don't remember the details of, and I eventually won. But that was nice to kind of come ahead of like the most promising players, or many of the most promising players of my generation. I started to feel like I was getting into top, or like maturing into a level that would be at the top of chess, would be 2012. I think I won 4 games, lost 1, and drew the rest. I shared second place with Magnus, and I think with one other player, I can't remember quite who. It might have been Rajab. Yeah, it might have been Rajabov. That sounds right. And then the winner was Levon Aronian, but I wasn't at that stage where I was thinking of winning a super tournament. So, and that was like one of the premier super tournaments at the time, the strongest with Magnus, with Vishy Anand, who was a world champion, with Vladimir Kramnik, who's a world champion, and so on and so forth. And so shared second place with Magnus, who was at the time already arguably the best, or like top 3 in the world, and also improved my rating to the high 2700s, that is. And a little bit later than that, I reached top 5 in the world. That was when I started to like really believe that I could compete at the top level and win tournaments. And 2012 was also a year that I did start to gain a few super tournament wins here and there. I won the Dortmund tournament, which is a traditional top level tournament, been going on for a very long time, and also shared first and lost in a blitz playoff to Magnus in what they called the Grand Slam tournament at the time. I think it was the last year they held it, but that was also a major accomplishment to share first place with Magnus, and also with like a performance of 2890 or so. It was one of the best performances I've ever had.
How long do you think it will take you to reach the top 10 in the world?
Well, not so easy to know. There's many ups and downs. But I hope it will be soon, and I hope that in the future I can improve my play. So 2012 was really the year when I started to feel like I could compete at that level, and showed also to the world that I can. And basically, I don't think I ever had a drop after that. I was so serious that I didn't feel like I was at that level. So from 2012 forward, I basically felt like a top player. I had like a very clear goal at that point to reach the 2800 rating. I don't know why that rating feels special, but for a lot of players who reach to the top level, they kind of dream of becoming 2800. I remember speaking with my father about this. I don't know, he was like, how do you get to 2800? And I was like, I don't know how you strategize about this, but that was definitely the goal. And in 2014, I finally made it. I played one of my favorite games against Ruslan Ponomarev, who is a former world champion. I think the youngest world champion in history. Maybe Gukesh now beat the record, but I think it's between them. They were like 18 years old world champion. And I beat him with like a very nice combination of moves at the end, with a checkmating combination where I sacrificed all my pieces save one piece, and that was a checkmating piece. And that was one of my favorite games. I achieved a 2800 rating in that tournament. And then like only a few months later, I achieved a rating of 2844, which was the third highest rating in the history of chess, behind Magnus, who was number 1, and Garry Kasparov, who's number 2. And I do have a feeling, at least for now, that the three of us will remain in that order, because nobody is breaking 2850 in the near future, at least. I mean, Magnus now is like 2830. We're all lost our ratings since then. But those were like the kind of glory days of high ratings. So yeah, I have a lot of fond memories from those years. And 2014 was one of the years that I kind of broke through to the next level, like not just one of the top players, but kind of feeling like maybe I was a little bit ahead or had chances to be number 1. Magnus was, of course, always present and proved too difficult to catch up to. But yeah, 2014 was also one of those special years for me.
Congratulations, Grandmaster Fabiano Caruana. You just won the strongest chess tournament in history. Are you going to Disney World?
No, I don't think so, but I'm very happy with it.
Any plans for the money?
Not really. I would say that the next major step in my career was in 2018 in the Candidates tournament, which was the second tournament I played of that year, and also my second Candidates tournament. This is a tournament that's held every 2 years, and only one spot qualifies to play the World Championship match. Because it's so difficult to, first of all, get into, and even more difficult to win, it's considered like pretty much the most prestigious win that you can have outside of becoming world champion. And everyone wants to achieve that. So it's a dream that if you talk to any top player or even under the top level, they'll dream of playing a world championship one day, and this is the way to get there. Definitely one of my best memories, winning the final Candidates game in 2014, knowing that I've qualified. So a dream that you can kind of think you have a chance, you always have a chance, but you don't know if you can ever expect to actually do it. Because there are players, truly great players throughout history who have never won the Candidates, but they've been really great players. It's just because it's like a very specific goal and you have to be on form at the right time. Like you can play great the whole year and then have a miserable 2 weeks and you miss out on this opportunity. So in 2016, I very narrowly missed out. I had to win in the final round and I didn't. And that year, Sergei Karyakin became the challenger for the World Championship, played Magnus, lost, and Magnus retained his title for at least 2 more years. So then next time was probably one of the most evenly matched, where you couldn't really pinpoint an exact favorite. You had Sergei Karyakin, who was the last winner. He was definitely one of the favorites. Levon Aronian, who is the fourth highest rated player in history. He's always been considered one of the favorites. And then you had players who were at the top of their game at the time. Shakhriyar Mamedyarov was definitely at the top of his game. Wesley So, for example, also was at the top of his game. He was playing there. It was a really evenly balanced tournament. And I have this like very clear memory, I think, of when I started to feel like I could win the tournament. It was as early as round 4. I was playing against Vladimir Kramnik, former world champion, who beat Garry Kasparov in the year 2000. And I was doing well in the tournament so far. I had won my first game. I had made 2 draws after that, and that's a good start. Any plus score at the early stages of the event are pretty good. But Kramnik had won 2 games out of 3, so he was in the lead and he was playing white against me. And this was probably the most dramatic game I've ever played in terms of like the length, the swings throughout the game, also like the tournament importance and the game importance. It wasn't like the final rounds, which are the most important, but outside of final rounds, it was about as important as you could get, just because we were both like fighting for the lead at that point. It started with me being winning. I was completely crushing him like early on in the game, but then I got low on time and I spoiled my advantage to the point that not only was it equal at some point, but then also completely reversed. And he was objectively winning and he had all the time in the world. I wouldn't say like it was an open goal, but it was as close as you could get to that. It was really, it wasn't free, but it was pretty close. Like he really had every chance to beat me and it was out of my control. But I did come up with a very nasty trick, I think, which like, it was kind of a shot in the dark, and there was nothing I could do at that point. I basically had to take this chance. He had a few paths forward and 2 of the 3 basically would win, but not in like a very concise way. It wasn't totally clear cut. And there was another one which looked very, very clear cut, but unfortunately it wasn't winning for him, at least unfortunately from his point of view. And he went for that one. And it was like a long combination where at the end I have this like final move which turns the game around and I'm no longer losing the game. But I'm still not winning. I've probably made a draw at this point. From that point forward, after I had most likely saved the game, he was still pushing really hard for a win. And then it went to a second time trouble phase where we're both like, I'm starting to have some ambition, but also I'm also thinking about not losing. And he's just thinking single-mindedly about beating me. And he starts to take a little bit of unnecessary risks while I was taking more measured risks. At some point he over pushes and also makes a critical mistake. And in the second time trouble phase, I turned it around and I won the game. That was probably like a 6.5 hour long game. It was one of the most difficult I've ever played, one of the most important from the tournament point of view. And it kind of set me up as like the early tournament leader while he fell. That was the last of his tournament chances, basically. So he was out of the running. I mean, it was only round 4. So although I was the early tournament leader and by round 7, I was considered a heavy favorite to win the tournament, it was still very close. And then by round 12, I lost a crucial game to someone who was exactly 1 point behind me. And it was, again, Sergei Karyakin. He equalized the level, the scores, and that was like a huge blow. If I had drawn that game, I think I would have considered like, okay, this tournament is basically mine to win at this point. But after that loss, he became the favorite in the tournament. And then it was down to the last 2 rounds. So this was like the next most critical moment in the tournament, the 13th round. A very memorable game, a very difficult one again. And I would probably credit the tournament win. Of course, it's 14 rounds. It's a combination of factors, but very much to that game as well. That would be like a really crucial game if I look at it in hindsight. I played Magnus in the World Championship 2018 at the end of the year. It was a 12-game match. We made 12 draws, which is highly unusual, that neither of us won a game. There were a few games there that if they had gone my way, then I could have won. I think like specifically game 8, but also game 6 to some extent was a game I could have won. And he also had his opportunities to win in game 1, for example. So it definitely wasn't one-sided. I mean, I missed my chances, he missed his. And we made 12 draws, and then he got the better of me in the tiebreak, which he definitely was a favorite the faster the time control got at the time. But anyway, I thought that I would have chances in the tiebreaks. It didn't turn out. And after 12 draws, we played a rapid playoff. I lost the rapid playoff and lost the match. And after you lose the match, your reward, I guess, is to qualify directly for the next candidates. So I played the next candidates in 2020. That was the one which got split in 2. So this is always a 2-year cycle. Definitely COVID changed the candidate cycle a lot, and a lot of things connected to that. It's always felt like a bit weird since then until the last candidates. That was like the first time that it felt like a normal tournament. So 2020 to like 2022 was such a strange period for the world as a whole, but also for chess players. Chess did kind of explode in popularity in some ways, especially post-pandemic. I think we kind of considered like 2020 for a few reasons as like one of the years that chess gained a lot of popularity, and then it kind of snowballed in some ways. I would say like from recent developments, definitely one of the big ones was joining Team Liquid, and chess and esports kind of combining in some ways and blending together. That was definitely one of the big changes. Don't know if it's a change, but like one of the constants in my life is that I'm trying to qualify for the next World Championship match. I put a lot of effort into qualifying last year and was the first to qualify for the candidates, and I'll be joined by 7 other players, 7 to be decided this year in 2025, and we'll play sometime next year. It'll be a 3-week event as usual, and at the end of the 3 weeks, one player will know that they're playing a World Championship. So it's always a strange thing, like you know that in 3 weeks, one player will have their kind of chess life very drastically changed, and for 7 it will be a huge disappointment. That's the usual state of affairs, but that's one that I have to put a lot of effort into, a lot of preparation that will probably start this year at some point and then go a bit into next year, depending on when we start to play. So the candidates, it's that kind of ever-present, ghost in the room. We're all trying to play it, to qualify, and to win the World Championship match. I'm still playing chess. It's 2025 and my goal is to become world champion, but of course it's not quite that easy. I'm now signed with Team Liquid, and that has been my life in chess so far.